Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly review. Today we're going to go over the episodes that came out with Kabhi Main Kabhi To. These have to be the most exciting episodes that have come out in the entire show so far. I was so excited for these moments that happened. However, I do feel like a couple characters went a bit too far, and we'll just get right into it. A quick summary on what happened this week. We had Rubab finally confront Adeel and expose him in front of everyone for his fraud and infidelity. Sharjeena also loses her child, and Mustafa experiences a lot of guilt and grief for not being able to be there for Sharjeena and realizing that he was not focused on the right things and he didn't have really good balance in his life. And finally, we also see that Mustafa's parents are experiencing the consequences of their actions and are also feeling a lot of guilt for how they treated Mustafa earlier in the show. So let's start off with the best and most satisfying part of the show so far, Rubab's revenge on Adeel. I don't think anyone expected us to side with Rubab, but Rubab took care of a lot of satisfaction for us because she exposes Adeel in front of all of her friends and family, including his. And also, very satisfyingly, she rubs a bunch of cake in his face, and it's really embarrassing for him and kind of sad because she just kept going in on him, but I'm not surprised. That all said, I felt like she went a little bit too far with the cake scene and exposing him and just dragging him through the mud, because she goes on to also throw her parents or his parents out of the house, and basically now they're on the streets. I felt like she should have just given them some grace, but she was just not having it. And I think it was mostly because she was just trying to take out everything, all the hatred and anger she had towards Adeel on everything that crossed her path, including his parents. Because I feel like, yeah, they weren't great, specifically the mom, but I'm sure she knows that Adeel would not make his parents, or his parents would not want Adeel to be doing something this drastic. And I know that I was really uncomfortable watching the scene because while I was very satisfied, it just kept going and going. And she, honestly, my favorite part was the fact that she kept getting irritated with him whenever he was trying to touch her. And she was just like, don't touch me, you know what? You deserve it. And it was kind of nice and satisfying to watch. That said, I know that I felt like she was acting a little bit too much or going too far towards the end, but Natasha mentions earlier in the show that she kind of does go crazy if someone does something bad to her, because she reacted in a similar fashion when her previous boyfriend also cheated on her or did something to her, right? So I wasn't really surprised. And that's why I think Natasha shouldn't have been surprised when she exposed them like that. Like, you kind of knew that was going to come, right? And now that I bring up Natasha, honestly, I don't feel bad for her. She got what she deserved. She apparently tried to self exit. And obviously, I don't want that for her or for anyone, but the fact that she felt so humiliated, what did you think was going to happen? You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't just do that to your literal childhood best friend. That's crazy. I felt really bad, more so for Salman rather than Natasha, because he does. Apparently, they have a huge argument and he divorces her. Honestly, I feel like Salman is the one that got the short end of the stick. I felt so bad because out of those four people, Natasha, Adeel, Salman, and Rubab, he was the most innocent and he was the most caring and genuine to his partner. And the fact that he had to experience that really sucks. And the fact that it had to be exposed in front of everyone, he had no he didn't do anything. So it felt so crappy to have to see him go through that. And I think it was a very realistic reaction for him to just kind of just shut down and just walk away or leave the situation, because he was also being embarrassed in front of everyone because his wife has been extremely disloyal, and he's really, really caring from what we see in the entire show towards his wife. So yeah, that was a lot, and I was satisfied but also a little bit uncomfortable watching all of that, specifically more so when it came to Mustafa's parents and just them having to basically be thrown to the curb. That was tough to see. And I thought, and so did my husband, think that on their way out when they were leaving with their bags, I thought she was gonna ask for their bags to be inspected in case they were trying to steal from her. Not that they would, but just in spite and just to be petty. But I don't know. It didn't happen, so it's fine. I just felt really bad for them. And then we have Sharjeena and the fact that she loses her child. A lot of people, I think, I was watching a lot of reviews. I got really interested in watching other people's reviews, and it was so entertaining to watch other people's thoughts and opinions on what's going to happen and what they thought of the show. And a lot of people were thinking that Sharjeena was going to pass away. I thought that was extremely unrealistic, and I was pretty sure that at most she will miscarry, which is essentially what happened. Very unfortunate, very sad, and a very difficult thing to have to go through. But the fact that I guess everything's been bottling up for so long. So, and finally, when she does come to, she is so upset and does not want to talk to Mustafa and eventually decides that she's not going home with him, understandably. But I also feel like she should have just gone home with her parents earlier before all of this happened so that there would be someone by her side to take care of her. Like, I think they showed that she was way too needy and dependent on him, and while she's not wrong for wanting that, the fact that she was going to this length, like I mentioned in my previous review, it was clear that she was home all the time and that she had stopped working. So she should have been spending some time with her family, whether she was calling them over or visiting them themselves. But she seemed to refuse to do that, and she just wanted his attention. And I think that's a little bit too much when you're asking for too much attention from one specific person, even if that person is your husband or your wife. Like, you need to have a balance in your relationships in order to prosper and have healthy relationships. That all said, I think it's also understandable that she needed someone to target her anger and frustration, and she's already been upset with Mustafa for so long that it makes sense for her to further take out her frustration on him. So I'm not surprised by that at all. And I do want to say that the mom, Sharjeena's mom, mentions that, you know, like, you're not the only one suffering this loss. I think that she is trying to be like really understanding and help the whole situation, but I just have to say that yes, she's not the only one that has suffered this loss, but at the end of the day, she was the person that was supposed to be the mom, and a mom's role and what a mom goes through and what a woman goes through to become a mom is like totally different compared to what a man has to go through. And of course Mustafa is suffering, of course their entire family is suffering, like her the nano to be and all of that. But at the end of the day, like, the physical loss is going through her, and you can't just negate that and be like, oh, like, you're not the only. It's not like, it's not apples to apples, you know. Of course it's related, he was going to be the father too, but it's not an apple to apple comparison. And I feel like they oversimplified it a little bit, but I guess for the sake of the drama they kept it that way. But yes, Mustafa is suffering a loss, but the loss that she is suffering is a lot more, and she's feeling it a lot more given the huge amount of neglect that she has been experiencing and partially imposed on herself by refusing to seek companionship from anyone else outside of her husband. Now, speaking of Mustafa, I feel like he's gone through a lot and it's been kind of crappy for him. He's been facing so much rejection from his family, from his previous employers, and he's finally been trying to like harness all this energy and gain some respect and acceptance from his colleagues and his employer and everything that's been going on with his job and career, that he totally neglects Sharjeena, and this happens and now he is lost. We need to take a quick break, but we're back. So as I was saying, back to Mustafa, I feel like we get to see him realize that everything that he's been working so hard for has not really panned out the way he was expecting. Not everything is about chasing, you know, success and money, and obviously those things are really important and his concerns were super valid, and he was trying to do the best he could for his family and just not screw up. And I think that was his primary motivation. He just didn't want to screw up anymore, and he wanted to do right by his wife and his future child. But in doing so, he neglected Sharjeena, and that resulted in both of them feeling neglected in their own ways, and specifically Sharjeena, because she was not occupied with another anything really. She wasn't occupied with work or other family, so she just felt really neglected. And while he was staying busy, he wasn't realizing how she was feeling, and now he feels extremely alone. And I think the scene was really intentional when we see that he's home alone in this big new nice apartment that's been furnished and all of that. It's a really nice penthouse suite, and he's alone and he ends up crying similarly to the way Sharjeena was crying in a previous episode. And I think it was to the point of this whole shot was to just show that both of them were suffering in their own ways. However, they both care for each other, but they were not there for each other when they needed each other, or the other person wasn't there for them, and they both suffered alone, and that's kind of the worst feeling ever. And I liked that they were trying to show like a vulnerable male figure in a Pakistani drama, because as far as I know, they don't really do that. So this was a nice different take on masculinity. However, I don't think it just didn't have as much of an impact as the previous scene with Sharjeena crying did, because when Sharjeena was crying, like, I don't know, I don't think it's just because I'm a woman and she's a woman. I think it's also the fact that what she was going through was very, very isolating, and it wasn't for a brief moment, it was for many months, clearly. While Mustafa is going through a lot now too, the same thing that he's going through right now, Sharjeena is also going through, because she also lost a child. So, I mean, if you want to compare, like, she has been suffering for a lot longer and will continue to suffer, especially with what she's going through. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about briefly, though I mentioned it already, was Mustafa's parents and the fact that they've been like just suffering essentially. Mustafa's mom feels a lot of guilt. First, she finally realizes how badly they treated Mustafa, and it's not clear to me if they realize that Mustafa never stole from them. I'm wondering, are they now thinking Adeel is the one that stole that money from Rabab earlier when they kicked him out of the house? Because he's looking real bad right now, you know what I mean? And I think it was kind of funny, the fact that Sharjeena or Mustafa's dad is just like, okay, like whatever's done is done. Like, I can't breathe. Can we stop talking about this right now? And of course, he ends up in the hospital again. And this time around, they have to call on Mustafa, even though, and you can tell, like, the mom is not sure if he's even going to respond, because understandably with the way that he was treated on the way out, right? But thankfully Mustafa goes and is there for them, and he feels, you can tell he feels a little bit numb because of everything that just happened in his personal life. But on top of that, he's having to face his parents after so long who think nothing of them. And I think he knows that now they will think something of him, but it's not important to him right now anymore because of the loss that he's experiencing and the fact that his wife is not really on good terms with him. And also, it was extremely sad to see the way that वो मजबूर होके they had to go to their daughter's home, and then on top of that वहाँ से भी ताने सुनने पड़ रहे थे. And then I was like, oh my god, she's probably like, Sharjeena or Mustafa's mom is probably thinking पहले दो बेटे के साथ इतना बुरा हुआ है, and now I'm going to, she's probably thinking like, मैं अब अपनी बेटी का घर भी खराब करूँगी. They're gonna not like, because they never like when, especially if it's a daughter or the daughter-in-law's family, उनकी help करनी ज़रूरत पड़ जाए, you know, like, it's, you know how it is, like, people just don't like helping the family of the daughter or the daughter-in-law. It's kind of annoying. Luckily, quickly get an exit from that place as well, because Mustafa has a huge empty apartment that he can bring them to. That's basically everything that happened in this episode and what I thought. Honestly, I really, really like these episodes because we finally got to get some resolution, and we got to see some of the terrible characters get their revenge or get sweet justice, because they deserved to be treated the way they were. I'm actually not sure what's going to happen in the next episodes. The last two episodes are coming out next week. Apparently they're going to be airing in cinemas, which is kind of exciting in Pakistan. But I'm wondering what is going to happen. I think that Mustafa and Sharjeena are going to be able to move forward, but they're going to continue to suffer for a little bit. I feel like there's a possibility that Sharjeena will just be so upset that she leaves him. But I think with how practical they have shown her for so long, if she just sits down and thinks, which she will be able to because she currently has space from him and is surrounded by her family and her mom, who is trying to comfort her and make everything okay again, I think that she will reconcile with him and they will move forward, and Mustafa will realize his mistakes and work as hard as he can to find that balance. And honestly, I think he will be able to do that also because his work, he's at a point in his work where they have secured funding and they just need to work hard moving forward, but they don't need to pull all-nighters necessarily. And I feel like his position in the company is such that he shouldn't have to do that anymore, and they should be able to hire other people to join the company. Oh, and final thoughts on a couple other things. I really think the dad should have controlled himself. Like, while the mom is at fault for being lalchi and all of those things, the dad really needed to like control himself and stop just kicking out kids left and right whenever he felt like it. That was not cool. Also, honorable mention, I think one of my favorite characters has to be not just Salman, because I did think like he was a good character, he was a good husband, there was nothing wrong with him. We don't really see that much of him, but he seemed like a nice guy, man. And the other character that I really like was Sidra's husband, so Mustafa's sister's husband. He was such a good, supportive son-in-law, brother-in-law, and I felt like I really appreciate the fact that, you know, he realized his mom was kind of like embarrassing his mother-in-law, and he kind of distracted her and was kind of talking to her and be like, hey, can you like not do that because they're going through a tough time. Like props to him for being the actual man in this show. None of the other characters live up to him. He was so cool for everything. Like every step of the way, he's been a supportive, understanding son-in-law and brother-in-law and husband, and we love that for him. In terms of Rabab and Adeel, it's a little confusing to me because I'm not really sure what is going to happen moving forward. It also wasn't clear to me if she falsely accused him of trafficking illegal substances. If that is the case, then maybe he will try to get justice and maybe Mustafa will try to help him. But also I think Mustafa should be like, you deserve to stay there and rot at this point because of everything that you've done. But I don't know, it's just so hard to tell and so hard to say, because I feel like I don't think he's gonna stay in jail forever, but I feel like I don't necessarily care if he does. I think Rabab will move on. I think she's satisfied with what's happened. In terms of like, the only thing that I'm concerned about is what is going to happen to the money that is offshore, and what is going to happen to Mustafa's parents because they don't have a home anymore. The dad basically lost his entire life savings and all his money that he's ever had, which is crazy to me because he was still so chill despite all that. He was just like, yeah, well, like, what can we do, really? Those are the only things that I'm really, really curious about, to see what happens in the coming episodes. And yeah, I hope it has a really good ending. I'm looking forward to the end. It's gonna be exciting, inshallah, and I'll probably see you guys in that review next. If not, I will be posting more reviews for other shows, including a final review for Zard Patokaban in the coming days, so look out for that. Check out my other reviews over here. And also, if you didn't know, I actually make a lot of videos about productivity and just self-improvement. I stopped for a while, but I'm getting back into it, and I'm really excited to share more videos, inshallah, in the coming weeks. So definitely subscribe for those as well. And I will see you guys in the next video. Assalamu alaikum. Damn.